So, as an American, looking on the internet, you see a lot of American slander. A lot of people talking about how America is the worst country in the world and how it's basically a third world country, and Americans are brainwashed into thinking that it's the best country. Now, to be fair, I don't know. Do Americans think America is the best country? There's a significant portion of them that do. I'm curious to see what percentage of Americans, you know what? Let's look it up right now. What percentage of Americans have left the US? 60, so only 36%, is that math, right? That's correct math. 36% of all Americans have actually left the US, according to this. 40% here. Okay. Um, Interesting. And this one says 40% have never left. Interesting. Um, yeah, okay. So I'm just curious. So most Americans probably don't know what other countries are like. But are they really that like are they really that inept? I don't know. I'm definitely like here's the thing, right? People talk about how the American education system is terrible. It's really not. I don't think it is. I think that either the teachers are bad or the students are just not smart. I'm gonna be real. It would be nice. I think people who blame the American education system aren't willing to admit that they're just not smart, right? Because you talk about like economics, you talk about politics, laws, um, and what's it called? History, um, basic human health, um, geography. These are all stuff I learned in high school. Like, what are people learning in high school where they just don't know anything? Because I did learn this stuff. I learned about chemistry. I learned about basic stuff. I learned about health. Like going to the don't stay at school video. Ooh, let me watch that. Because that video talks about a lot of stuff that I did learn. So
Yeah, what the fuck?
what are people learning? Like what are people not learning or learning? Like do they not know anything? Where are people not getting this information from? I was getting all this information. Maybe I'm just at a well-funded school. I don't know. I think it might depend on what school you go to, on what kind of information you have access to. Because it makes sense that like if you're at a poorer school, that maybe they don't have all of these classes. But I did have all of these classes, so I learned all of this stuff, right? So let's go
Frog.
through it.
I wasn't taught how to get a job.
I was taught how to get a job. We learned that in JRTC, and we actually practiced about how to learn about how to get a job. We had our instructor who was Major England. He was basically pretending to be our job instructor, interviewer. So we practiced how to apply for a job and how to get interviews and whatnot. Unfortunately, all that stuff is a bit outdated now because apparently you can't just walk up into an establishment and ask for papers and sign up for a job. According to some people, you can't do that. So it's all online now. So in the time I did it, it wasn't at the time I learned about that stuff in high school. It wasn't all online. There was some online stuff, but it didn't really become super massively online. I think until COVID. When COVID hit, it became all online. So a lot of the information is redundant, but we did learn it. We did learn how to get a job. We learned how to apply. We learned how to get access to some of the basic information that we would need to have in order to get a job. So that does not apply to me.
But I can remember dissecting a frog.
We never dissected a frog. We did dissect a cow eye. We never dissected a frog though.
I wasn't taught how to pay tax.
I wasn't taught how to pay tax like like very well, but we did learn about generally how to do taxes in our economics class in year 11, um, aka junior year. We did learn about um, compounding interest and stuff. I'll be honest, a lot of that kind of went over my head but we did learn it. I don't blame the American education system for it not registering a lot in my head, but we did like we did learn a little bit of it. I'll give like a half point to that one.
But I know loads about Shakespeare's classics.
Do I know about Shakespeare classics? Hamlet. Yeah, we did do Romeo and Juliet in English class. Yeah, yeah, we did. Okay.
I was never taught how to vote.
Was I taught how to vote? Yeah, I think I was. In history class, yeah, they taught us how to vote. They gave us the ballots and they showed us the different types of. Yeah, when I had my history class and my politics class, because I took a history. Oh no, sorry, not history. U.S. law. In our U.S. law class and our U.S. politics class, we did learn how to vote, um, and like how to sign up to vote, how to apply to vote. And they showed us like websites where we could do that kind of stuff. That wasn't like a lot of time dedicated to that. It was only just like a portion of a portion. But realistically, it's not that complicated. So I guess they just didn't feel like it was necessary to devote a bunch of time to that. But yeah, we did get that information of how to vote. At least, back in 2015 when I was in high school and learned that. It's a little bit different now, but yeah.
Devoted that time to defining isotopes. I wasn't taught how to look after my health, but
I was taught how to look after my health. That was learned in a health class. I took a health class in year 10. I took two health classes, in fact, in year 10. And we did learn about basic health stuff like cholesterol, metabolism. We even learned about like mental health stuff like euthanasia is not mental health stuff, but like, you know, the very basics of like depression, schizophrenia, um, and stuff like that. So no, yeah, no, we did learn health stuff. We learned about like the MBI, is that what it is? IBM. Oh man, it's embarrassing that I don't remember it off the top of my head. The it's like the weight divided by height. Oh man, I can't remember what it's called. IBM scale? Is that IBM scale? Oh, that's IBM. No. Oh man, what is it called? MBI? BMI, BMI, that's what it is. BMI, body mass index. Yes, 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 yes. We did learn about that. I was like, what is it? IMB, IBM? Oh my God. Yes. Body mass index. We did learn about that kind of stuff. So yeah.
mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Never spent a lesson on current events.
We'll never spend a lesson on current events. We spent quite a bit of time during our U.S. law and our U.S. history class talking about current events. By current events, we talked about like the war on terror. We talked about the 2008 recession, the Great Recession. Um, we even talked about even like later stuff, like in the 90s. We learned about the Bill Clinton scandal. That was interesting. Um, we learned about I mean, that's basically it. We learned about other stuff, but that's all I can remember off the top of my head.
Instead, I studied the old American West. I was never taught.
Old American West. We actually didn't learn too much about the Old American. Well, we learned about that, yeah, like the Old Frontier, like the how settlers were going in westward into the Old Frontier, and how they had people basically racing to grab and create new territory out in the very unpopulated western states. So yeah, we did learn about it, I guess.
What laws there are. I was never taught what laws there are. Let me repeat. I was.
Obviously, I know a lot about the laws of the US as of 2015, 2016 when I took my law class. Whether or not those laws have changed, I'm not exactly sure. But we did learn about that stuff. Like we learned about that the when the US has voting, they send delegates. Well, you vote for representative delegates to vote on your behalf in January of that next year, and that it's every 4 years. In fact, there was like a dumb comment I saw about how people were like, it was about the 2020 election, and people were like, "Oh man, they thought that the insurrection, the January insurrection, that of the people, the conservatives rushing the Capitol, the people, the fucking commenter was talking about some like this guy is so dumb because he thinks that that was about the 2020 election and it happened in 2021. I'm like, yeah, that is the 2020 election. The 2020 election happens in 2021. That's when the delegates actually do their voting. That is what it is. Don't call other people dumb if you don't know how the US government works. If you don't know how the US government works, that's fine. Fair enough. Totally understandable. But also don't call other people dumb when you don't know what you're talking about. Man, I wish I saw that comment. I replied to him and said, "You don't know what you're talking about. The 2020 election technically happens in 2021, like in January of 2021. The public election where people get to vote for, the candidates they want to, that happens in 2020. But when the delegates are actually voting in Washington, D.C., that happens in 2021." Anyways, I learned about law stuff. Um, yeah,
Not
moving on.
taught the laws for the country I live in, but I know how Henry VIII killed his women. Divorced,
Both
beheaded,
beheaded
died.
died.
Divorced, beheaded, survived. Glad that's in my head instead of financial advice. I was shown the wavelengths of different hues of light.
I don't think I was ever showed the wavelengths of different hues of light. I have definitely never had that. I learned it through my own interest of looking it up, but I was not taught that in school. Um, the wavelengths of different hues of light. I have no idea. Like 36 nanometers to 380 nanometers? I'm probably making this up, I'm gonna be honest. I know there's like the light spectrum, like there's visible light, and then gamma rays, and ultraviolet rays, and infrared rays, but I was never taught like this hue is this wavelength. Let me actually see. Wavelengths of the visible spectrum. Let's see. Oh god, these numbers are way different, so never mind. This is 380 nanometers, and this is 740 nanometers. Okay. I said 38 nanometers. It was not 38, it was 380. Okay.
But I was never taught my human rights. Apparently there's 30. Do you know them? I don't. Why the hell can't we both recite them by rote? I
Human rights, yeah, I don't know that. I don't think I was taught that one. Are these here? Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. All are equal before the law and entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. I mean, that's fair if you don't
was
get taught them though, because they don't apply everywhere. Like the basic human rights don't apply everywhere. So it makes sense that you would be taught the rights for the country you live in. It doesn't make sense to be taught laws and rights that don't apply to you. So like if you learn like
shown the
if
way.
these were the laws in the US, it would make sense that you would have to know them. But it's like, you in the US, it makes sense that you aren't going to be taught the universal human rights if they don't all apply, especially if it's like, for other countries. Like why would you be taught German law if you're a US citizen learning US law? You know what I mean?
Do you know them? I don't. Why the hell can't we both recite them by rote? I know igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks, yet I don't know squat about trading stocks or.
I mean, to be fair, why would you need to know about trading stocks? I did learn about it a little bit in economics class, as I said, in year 12. Um, I only learned like very surface level stuff about it though, about trading. So we learned about the general idea about like publicly traded companies and how you can invest in stocks and you get a percentage of that money back whenever you invest into that company and you sell your stock, but only if you sell your stock. And we learned about investment funds. Not about hedge funds though. I didn't learn about hedge funds until that GameStop thing happened. Um, so no, I would say that doesn't apply to me. Or money, how money works at all, where does it all come from? That's fair. I guess I didn't learn exactly that. I mean, we know about taxes. Mostly money comes from taxes and also other sources. Like we trade with other countries, and a lot of our money also comes from buying and selling goods with other countries. Like we have our U.S. companies working in other countries like China and Indonesia and Thailand, and a percentage of that money goes to the U.S. government. And we just do general trade with other countries. And unless if you're talking about literal physical banknotes, in which case they're printed at the Treasury, I'm assuming. I actually don't know that for a fact, but that's my assumption.
how money works at all. Where does it come from? How does the thing that motivates the world function? Not taught to budget and disperse my earnings. I was too busy there rehearsing cursive.
That's another big thing. I never learned cursive. My mom actually made me learn cursive just by myself. And I was like, I hate learning cursive. I don't want to learn cursive. Because she's like, no, you're going to have to learn cursive when you get into school. Guess what, Mom? Never did anything cursive. And I tell her that every time. Because I basically spent an entire summer having to practice and rehearse cursive. Didn't need it for my entire high school and middle school and elementary school career. It was a complete waste of time. I called it. By the way, just for the record. So no, I did not need to learn how to. What was the thing before that?
Not taught to budget and disperse my earnings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't taught how to budget and disperse earnings. I don't know. Is that really necessary? Yeah, I guess we probably should have learned that, but I will agree. That's one I'll give you. Dave from Boy in a Band did not get taught how to do that.
I was too busy there rehearsing cursive. Didn't learn how much it cost to raise a kid and what an affidavit is, but I spent days on what the quadratic equation is.
Yeah, I guess I did not learn that, I will say. I don't know what an affidavit is off the top of my head. Don't know how much it costs to raise a kid. Have no idea. So yeah, those are good points that we were not taught. Quadratic equation is, oh man, let me see. Can I remember it off the top of my head? B squared plus or minus the square root of negative b minus 4ac all over 2a, I think. Let's see.
B plus or minus the square.
Oh, it's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4a over, 4ac over 2a. Dang, it was the other way around. Dang it. Okay.
Minus 4ac over 2a. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. They made me learn that over basic first aid, or how to recognize the most deadly mental disorders or diseases with preventable causes.
Yeah, we kind of learned a little bit about that when I was. We learned a little bit about first aid in my health class, but not a lot though. I think we definitely should have learned more, 100%. We learned like very basic stuff though, like how to apply. That you should be applying pressure to wounds, that you should not take out objects that are impaled into you and you should leave them inside of you because otherwise you could bleed out. But only like very basic stuff. I do think we should have learned more about first aid. How to recognize most deadly mental disorders. We didn't learn about the most deadly mental disorders. We learned about dementia. We learned about like the very basics of a bunch of mental disorders. We don't know how to recognize them. We do have a general idea of what it is and how it affects you, but it's just very general stuff that I would imagine most people know, and that's how I imagine most people do know, like about dementia and whatnot, is from general knowledge. But we did learn about that, so I don't know. What do you want us to learn, like the signs? I don't know. I feel like that's kind of not our job to learn the signs of it. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. But we did learn about it.
Recognize the most deadly mental disorders or diseases with preventable causes, or how to.
Diseases with preventable causes. Like, you're talking about like influenza or cholera, E. coli. We did not learn about that per se. And I guess we didn't learn about diseases that much. We learned about like STIs and STDs and whatnot, but not other stuff, not like malaria or anything like that. Yeah, fair point. I guess we didn't learn that. Or how to buy a house with a mortgage. Definitely did not know that.
To buy a house with a mortgage if I could afford it, because abstract maths was deemed more important than advice that would literally save thousands of lives. But it's cool, because now I could tell you if the number of unnecessary deaths caused by that choice was prime. Never taught present-day practical medicines, but I was told what the ancient Hippocratic method is. I've got a headache, the pain is ceaseless, what should I take? Maybe try some leeches?
They did? Yeah. I mean, honestly, leeches. I mean, it depends on. I mean, leeches aren't. You're not going to use leeches unless if it's like an open wound, and they're obviously going to be. Well, no, sorry, I'm thinking of maggots. My bad. I'm thinking of maggot therapy. Leeches are different. My bad. I was going to say, like, if it's an open wound, then you have like maggot therapy they'll eat the dead tissue and whatnot. Yeah. Could we discuss domestic abuse? We learned about that in health class, actually. Yeah.
Could we discuss domestic abuse and get the facts, or how to help my depressed friend with a mental state?
Didn't we learn that? We learned about depression. Yeah, I would say we learned about that in health class, but it's more of just like very generic stuff. Like we learned about like we didn't we like we learned about signs of depression and um like some different types of medicines that could be used. I don't remember that stuff off the top of my head now, but if I go back, I'd be like, yeah, yeah, we learned that. You're not going to remember everything off the top of your head that you learned in school, just like very basic stuff. So, but we did learn about that kind of, but I think we could have gone more into it, so that's a fair point.
No, but learn mental maths because you won't have a calculator with you every day. They say it's not the kids, the parents are the problem. Then if you taught the kids to parent, that's the problem solved then.
They say it's not the kids, the parents are the problem. If you taught the kids to parent, that's the problem solved then. I think you've got to do both. I think you got to do both. I think that parents should do more research and they should be more knowledgeable about the overall world before they become a parent. I think that would be a good idea. I think the problem is that a lot of people that are becoming parents are not planning on it. I don't know if it's the majority or not, but a lot of people I know, including my own mother, who had kids, did not plan on having kids. And I would say that if you are not planning on having kids, then it makes sense that you're not going to be the best parent because you didn't plan on it. You didn't plan on being a parent, and it makes total sense. And I don't think that that's an issue that's going to be easily solved. I think it's just if you are a person and you are not ready for kids, either because you have a lack of knowledge or a lack of ability, experience, or you simply just are not in an environment that would be suitable for you to bring in kids, then do not put yourself into situations where you can have kids. Be careful about the things that you do with other people, or just don't do things with other people. I don't have a kid. I mean, granted, it's. Imagine for some people it's less of a choice, and for some people it's not a choice. And for those people, I feel for them. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, domestic or not domestic, sorry, um, uh, sexual assault victims, they it's their fault or anything like that. But I'm just saying, like, in general, most people who have kids realize that there was the possibility and potential of having kids, and they didn't take the proper precautions in making that not a possibility. And that includes abstinence, because abstinence is always a choice. Um, so just that's something you got to be careful of. And I'm not saying that uh, if you are unprepared to have a kid, that it's the end of the world. If you have a kid and you didn't plan on it, that's not the end of the world. But at the same time, it's generally recommended that you should invest more time and effort into trying to learn stuff. The internet is free. You can get access to all sorts of information on the internet. That's, to be fair, you might not know where to go. And I'm not going to say, like, just because it's somewhere on the internet that everybody should know it. Absolutely not. That would be applicable to basically everything in life. But what I am saying is that when it's something as important and as significant as a literal human being coming into existence because of your actions, you should try and be as cautious and careful about everything you do in between to make sure that the kid's life is as suitable as you can possibly make it. I think that's a very fair statement. I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
All this advice about using a condom, but not for when you actually have a kid when you want one.
Yeah, that's fair. We don't know really how to raise a kid.
I'm only fluent in this language. For serious, the rest of the world speaks too. Do you think I'm an idiot?
Yeah, you are taught foreign languages in school. Like, there's this weird thing where they're like, man, Americans are only know English and they're so bad. And that's because they just, I don't, it, what do you want them to do? They're taught foreign languages. In fact, I think for most people, you have to learn foreign languages as an elective. They just suck at it. And you're not going to make Americans suck any less at learning a foreign language. If you literally force them to learn a foreign language and they just suck, then at that point, what do you want Americans to do? I don't know. Like, is there even a perfect solution? I think the problem is that American everything in America is just English. The world is primarily English. You don't need to have access to other languages. You can just learn English and live in the United States and only know English, and you can be perfectly fine. In other countries, less so, right? Like if you live in Slovenia, you're probably going to want to learn a second language because if you want to move outside of your country, which is a realistic thing of you moving outside of the country in Slovenia or Slovakia or Czech Republic, you're going to probably want to learn German or English, especially German if you're going to plan on working in Germany because that's a common thing. But in the US, you generally aren't planning on leaving the United States. You can live a very prosperous and functional life just by living in the United States. And guess what? In the United States, you can live by only learning English. So even if you learn Spanish or French, of course, for most people, that's not going to register. I'm only as good at German as I am because I have a German mother who I can speak German to every day. I'm happy that I have that because I probably would not have the want. Well, that's not true. I love languages and I'm always curious about languages. And even outside of me knowing German, I still do practice on other languages. I know very basic stuff about basically every language. Um, and I can look at a language and identify what language it is with relative confidence. Not all the time, sometimes. Sometimes I'm not really it's either impossible or I'm not able to distinguish it very well. Like with Ukrainian and Russian, if it's a line of text in Ukrainian that doesn't have the I's, then I might mistake it as Russian or Arabic and Urdu and all those languages. They look very similar, and as somebody who can't read those languages, I'm not able to define this not define. I'm not able to decipher between one or the other. But I'm generally interested in languages, and I have a investment in trying to learn languages. I've dipped my toes in a lot of major languages around the world. Point is that you know it's it's very understandable that Americans only know English. And I think that that's fine. I don't think that that's a problem that Americans only know English. As long as they're able to function within their own country, that's fine. I think it becomes a problem if Americans are trying to leave other countries, leave and go to other countries and work and live in those other countries, and they don't care enough to try and learn those languages. Like if you go to Denmark and you plan on living in Denmark and you don't want to even try to learn Danish, I think that is more of a problem. You'll be like, enough people here speak English. Or the Netherlands, for example. A lot of people in the Netherlands speak English. But if you go to the Netherlands and you don't even try to learn Dutch, and you're just like, a lot of people here speak English, I'll get by, then that's kind of where the problems preside. Anyways, that makes sense.
I chose the solo over the political system, so like a typical citizen, now I don't know what I'm voting on.
Definitely not the case for me. We learned all about the political systems in our US politics and US law class. We learned about the general different types of things, policies that the Republicans and the Democrats um, vote for and what they believe in. And we also learned about the demographics of the kind of people and the different states that have the preferences. Like we know that California is mostly Democrat, Texas is mostly Republican, New York is mostly Democrat, and so on and so forth. And we know about the different types of things that those politicians believe in, as a general, obviously. Some politicians might be more in the middle on certain topics, right? But like, we learned about the extremes, like not anti-life, sorry, pro-choice, that's the word I was looking for, pro-choice versus pro-life. I was gonna say anti-life versus pro-life. That's not what I meant. Pro-choice versus pro-life, gun rights versus gun control, all the basic stuff. So no, I would disagree with that. We learned all that stuff.
Which policies exist or how to make them change? Mais oui, je parle un peu de français. So at 18 I was expected to elect a representative for a system I had never ever ever been presented with. But I won't take it. I'll tell everyone my childhood was wasted. I'll share it everywhere how I was educated, and insist these pointless things don't stay in school.
Yeah, I mean, I still agree with that. If you can't explain why, blah, 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 introduce those topics. Yes, We should choose if we want to learn more. Yeah, nobody should be forced to learn something that isn't practically useful. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that there was a lot of topics that I learned in high school that were kind of a waste of time, but I don't think that anything, I don't know, I don't think anything, like for me in particular, I think the only thing that was really a massive waste of time was my English class. English class was a massive waste of time, no doubt. I don't think anything I learned in English class was actually useful, which is funny because I did really well in my English class. Like I got like 100. I did very well, but it's because I'm competent in English. I'm pretty good at speaking. I'm pretty good at, you know, facilitating information. So it was not difficult for me to pass English class when I actually tried. College, that's a different story because I had to actually do like research, and I hate research. I hate research a lot. I hate like going to a bunch of different sources. If I could just get all the information from Wikipedia and that was good enough, because I do research, and by research I mean go on Wikipedia and then maybe do further research off that. I love Wikipedia, great website by the way. If you haven't donated to Wikipedia, you should support a noble cause of providing free information to as many people as possible. That being said, um, that is the maximum extent of my uh, ability in English. I don't know, whatever. Moving on. Anyways, now to the actual point of the video. Let's go to how bad, how dumb are Americans? Should I stop the recording? Yeah, we'll just keep going.
America.
What's something that's clearly a scam but Americans have been conditioned to believe is normal?
So I reacted to this live. I may or may not have that as a different video and cut it into different pieces, whatever. I ranted for a very long time. And it's time to actually have more of like a coherent discussion rather than just being a bunch of rants about unrelated topics. So, with the original question, what is a scam? Definitely health insurance. Health insurance is probably the biggest problem in the US. I would say it's really the only major massive problem that affects. Now, there are other problems too. What is the worst thing about the US? Probably that. Probably the health insurance thing. But the thing is that the majority of Americans are insured. Like, let's do that. Well, you know what? Let's go through the video first. How about that?
I think the United States is like the best country in the world. You guys are like miserable.
I mean, you said that you guys are miserable, but I mean, if you look at Japan, oh boy. I mean, obviously you can make comparisons to other countries, but like, let's take the United States. Let's take is the United States the worst country? No. It's really good in a lot of regards. It's like if you were having to rank the United States on a world stage in comparison to all other countries, it's easily top 30. And I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. If you disagree with it, you do not know the world. You do not fundamentally understand the world. And it's as simple as that. You do not understand that there are places that have significantly less going for them. You do not know about most of Latin America. You don't know about most of Central America, most of Africa, most of Asia, Southeast Asia. If you genuinely think that the United States is worse than the top 30, you simply lack enough knowledge to be able to give your opinion. And that is a fact. I will go through and argue with you about every single point, and I will point to you to sources that will say that the United States is not the worst in as a general regard. Are there very specific things where the United States is the worst? I would say so, yeah. But as a general comparison, no, it's not. Let's go through everything.
You don't get paid vacations. You get
Now, so okay, you don't get paid vacations. This is something I am actually okay with. I think that if you are going to be working, then you get paid for the work. If you don't work, you don't get paid. I think that's fair. I think if you want to have a vacation, I think the fact that paid vacations are in existence is kind of funky to me. Let's actually see. Let's see. How many countries provide paid vacation? Let's do paid leave. How about that? Paid leave. Of the 174 countries that offer paid leave for a personal problem, just 26 offer 4 weeks or fewer, according to the data from World Policy. Okay. Okay. Oh, well, to be fair, it looks like the most of the world In the majority of nations, all industrialized nations except the United States, advances in employees' relations have seek the introduction of statutory agreements for minimum employee leave from work. That is the amount entitlement to paid and blah, 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 blah. Yeah? Okay, well, fair enough. Paid family leave, that's kind of a bit a different story. Paid leave for new mothers, that's true. We don't have maternity leave, and I'll give you that. That's definitely something that could be provided. 24 weeks or more, that's a lot, bro. Like, here's the thing, right? Going back to the whole thing about being a parent. Generally speaking, if you're a mother, that was either your choice or that was negligence. Obviously, fucking all the women watching this are going to be mad at me because they're going to be like, you don't understand what it's like to be a woman and blah, 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 blah. And that's fair. But at the end of the day, if you simply just don't engage in activities that could result in you having children, then you won't have children. It's pretty simple. No, no, can nobody hate me on that one? Yeah, no, just I haven't, right? Listen, I'm 23 years old. I haven't done that. Is it that difficult not to? Apparently, apparently. I've never gotten anyone pregnant. I've never even got anyone close to being pregnant. That's not even a possibility. If anyone ever says you're the father of anything, they literally have to be lying. You know what I mean? Anyways, let's take a look. Paid leave for new fathers. Yeah, most countries don't do that. Yeah. But Germany does. Yeah. I think, again, with paid leave, let's talk about paid leave for a second, right? Let's go into that. All right. Being able to make income despite you not working for a company, or despite you not actively contributing to a company, is a weird thing. Makes sense. I can understand why. I think that there should be paid leave, but I don't think that the U.S. is a terrible country because they don't have it. It makes logical sense that if you work and you're actively working and you're making that company more money, then you get paid. If you're doing absolutely nothing, then you don't get paid. If you're spending 24/7 taking care of a child, you don't have the time and effort to work for the company. You are only costing the company money. So, should you get paid for that? I think that I can see an argument why you should get paid for it. But at the same time, I can also see why the companies are like, no, you're not doing anything. Why would we give you money for doing absolutely nothing to contribute to our company? I don't know. Is that a controversial take? Is that controversial? Oh man. I think the way it's going to come across is that I think paid maternity leave is unnecessary. But do I really think it's unnecessary? Kinda. I don't know, honestly. U.S. is one of 7 countries without national paid maternity leave. I think the thing is that some companies offer it. See, that's the thing, right? With all of this stuff, paid maternity leave, paid days off, and that's also in here. It's only not required by the government, but a lot of companies do it anyways. So that's kind of like a bit misleading because it implies that like if you're a mother working for a company, you're going to get absolutely no paid leave for being a mother, or if you're sick, that you get absolutely no sick days. When that just isn't true. It depends on the company. I don't know what percentage of companies provide those services, but I do know some of them do. Let me see here. Let's look it up. Well, what is breaking news? Oh Jesus. Oof. Damn, dude, that hurricane's rough. I'm gonna look up more about the hurricane. Um, how many companies provide paid leave? 35% of employers provide paid extended family care leave. Okay. So there are a decent percentage. Ooh, okay, here, look at this. Over half of employers, 55% now offer paid maternity leave. Just 50% of companies with 99 females provide paid. Seems like the jury is up on this, but it's definitely a moderate percentage. Let's see, with Access to paid family leave. Seems like the larger the company is, the more companies are with access to unpaid family leave. 81%, 90%, 95%, 94%. Yeah, you can get unpaid leave all you want. Paid leave though, it's a decent percentage though. It's a decent percentage. Should it be a higher percentage? Probably. You can make that argument. But to say that there are no companies and every job in the U.S. doesn't provide maternity leave is just straight up not true. And it's important that people who are making this argument understand that. Okay, moving on.
Get in debt to study, you have to.
So yeah, college tuition fees. College tuition fees in the U.S. are really high. They are higher in some places, but they are really high in the U.S. Let's take a look actually. Average cost of college tuition. Let's take a look per country. So yeah, United States looks like it is up there. We're gonna go to one class. Hopefully I don't get ads. Let's take a look. So yeah, United States is pretty high up there. There was something I saw that was like the percentage of um the percentage, like if you look at the percentage of uh how much you earn, that's a different story, right? Because like yes, $30,000 is expensive and it is a lot, but also you got to keep in mind, like you might look at this and like, oh man, in Ireland and Iceland and Estonia, it's only $12,000. It's so cheap. But you also got to take into consideration that $12,000 there is still a lot of money because you got to take into consideration cost of living and average earnings. So it's a little bit misleading to say, oh, $30,000, that's like the second most amount because, again, cost of living and average earning is very different. So let's say here, let's do a different thing. Most expensive college tuition in the world. Like, let's look at that, right? Yeah, bad example. No, hold on. Countries where gay marriage is illegal. And look, you can see the kind of stuff I was looking up in the past. Countries where college college is tuition free. College tuition is most expensive. No, not expected. Yeah, see, so this one right here, from WeForum, this one shows a very different story. So 92% of your um, salary for throughout the year is would be spent on college. 92%. So although again in Hungary, it's the college is cheap with asterisks, it's still a significant portion of the amount of money that you make. Romania, Estonia, Chile, Malaysia, these are countries where the college tuition isn't super duper expensive, like 38,000 here. 38,000 is not the most insane amount of money for maybe Americans, but for Estonians, where the cost of living, or not the cost of living, but the average income of working class citizens is relatively low, especially compared to the U.S., then yeah, it's going to be a large percentage. Like look at these numbers, right? These numbers don't scale perfectly. Like $91,000 is a lot, and I'm not going to say it's not a lot, but also $91,000 to us as Americans with average cost of living and everything like that is less than in Malaysia, $18,000. 18,000 US dollars in Malaysia is a lot of money because cost of living, average income, all that stuff. You understand what I'm getting at? Hopefully. So just take into consideration, I'm not saying college in the US isn't expensive. It is very expensive, and it should be something that's dealt with. But keep in mind that the United States is not the very worst in that regard, and then that a lot of countries, it is also very expensive. We can also look at countries where housing is most expensive. Housing in the US is also expensive, but in comparison to other countries, it's really not as bad. So Bermuda, Switzerland, Iceland, Denmark, Luxembourg, like look at these countries, right? These are all the quote unquote great countries. Like all the good countries, Denmark, Norway, Switzerland, all these are all of the good countries. But as you can see, it's expensive to live here. They only really allow rich people to live there. Like, you want to know why the United States is less prosperous than Denmark and Iceland? The reason why, a big reason why, is because A, we have a lot of people, and B, because um, in order to be in Denmark and be in these other countries, you have to be pretty rich. You cannot come from Botswana and live in Denmark. You just literally cannot afford how much money it costs to own a house, to live there. In order to even get into the country, you have to be relatively rich. So of course they're going to have some things. Like and even getting into these countries is relatively difficult sometimes. I'm just saying, like for especially countries that aren't part of the EU, like Switzerland and Norway, living in those countries is a real hassle. It is. Austria is living in Austria is a real hassle. It's not as easy as just buying a house. And even if you could buy a house, it's really expensive. More expensive than um more expensive than most Americans would be able to afford. America is very various, where we have a lot of poor people, a lot of middle income people, and a lot of rich people. In Norway, for example, it's almost exclusively rich people. Well, it's let me maybe not say that, but the average income in Norway, the average GDP is a lot more than in the US. So of course, the services that they are able to provide are going to be of higher quality than in the US because there's just so much more people in the US. There are things that you can do in Norway that you couldn't do in the US because it doesn't scale. There is just way too many people. 360 million. How many people are in Norway, right? 5 million? Compare that to the US is like 300 million. So 5 million, 10 million, 5 million, 5 million, right? That's less people than in Texas alone. You know what I mean? The US population is, what is it even? 331 million, yeah? You can't have everything scale appropriately up to that point, especially because a large percentage of the US population isn't wealthy. So they can't afford to be in these scenarios. And you could argue, okay, we'll just raise the minimum wage. Well, that would further raise the cost of living. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. I think that would be worth it. But at the same time, you got to recognize that there is a scaling economy here. You know what I mean? You can't just simply give poor people money. That wouldn't really fix the problem. You know what I mean? You would have to like change the structure of the United States, which if you want to advocate that, fine, but you need to be a bit more specific. You know what I mean? You can't just say, oh, the U.S. should just do what Norway does, because that would literally not work. Anyways, moving on.
Pay to go to the doctor.
Okay, so yeah, with the pay to go to the doctor, health insurance, definitely a big problem. Definitely not gonna, especially as somebody, me, and this is a particularly relevant thing to me because I don't have health insurance. So the cost of health insurance is very relevant to me, and that's important to me. And I would advocate for politicians who are able to reduce the cost of health insurance and also provide a more um, health insurance to more people. But as you can see here, the vast majority of people, 92% of Americans, do have health insurance. 92%. Only 8% of Americans, 8.6% according to this, 8.6% according to this, 8% according to this. So less than 10% of Americans don't have health insurance. So for 92% of Americans, it's not as big of a deal if you do have situations where, you have bills because the health insurance will pay for it. Now, sometimes they won't pay for it in full, and I'm not going to sit here and say The health insurance is perfect. And even if you have health insurance, you can still get some hefty bills, expensive bills, and that should be addressed. But at the same time, that should be taken into consideration because in the US, taxes are cheaper. You pay less in taxes. A larger percentage of the money that you earn goes directly to you. But in turn, if you do get into accidents or incidents, then you have to pay a larger amount. And that's why they make a big deal about suing in the US, because if you have to pay large amounts of medical bills, you're almost always going to want to sue anybody else who could possibly be responsible, because, with health insurance might not cover it. If somebody runs you over with a car, it's going to be within your best interest to find that person, track them down, and sue them so they'll pay for your medical bills. Anyways,
Guns, just guns.
just guns. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. I'm not going to go deep into gun control because we're 50 minutes into this recording. But I will say this. With There are gun problems. I mean, like literally, if you press Control T, you can see knifed to death. Stabbed is usually the word. You don't use knife. You're gonna see a lot of cases of people getting killed by gun violence or getting harmed by gun violence, and that is true. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that there isn't a problem with gun violence, and maybe it should be addressed. I have solutions. My theoretical solution is that they treat guns more like cars. So in order to get guns, you have to have you have to have a license. You have to get training. You have to show that you know how to use the gun. And after like a year or so, you can finally start to use the guns. And you have to be actually cautious about your guns. Again, with gun insurance. So if anything does happen, with your gun, you are liable for it. Kind of like, again, with car, if somebody takes your car, or if you give somebody access to your car and they cause a car crash, then you are responsible, at least partially, for that happening. Um, and also, the government should be able to track and make sure that you still have access to those guns so that you're not selling the guns illegally. Um, and that if you don't have access to the guns, or if you do lose the guns, it's important that you know, are able to continue to have access to those guns because we don't want people selling guns on the black market, or at least as easily, because it would be a thing. Like you're not going to get guns out of America. Like some people are still going to have guns. You're never going to get all guns out of America. But I think the best theoretical solution is to have as many people as possible who have guns be able to be responsible for the guns and to reduce the amount of bad actors who have access to guns. But let's be real, right? 99% of the time you're going to spend in the US, you're not even going to be thinking about gun violence. The vast majority of people that live in the US will not have experienced gun violence. I've lived here for more than 20 years. I have not even heard gunshots in real life, other than when I was at a firing range. This will obviously depend on where you live. In some places, it's a lot of a problem. Like, I heard in Chicago, it's really bad. In LA, it can be bad. So this is definitely not meant to be a overall overarching thing that applies to everyone and everywhere. All right? You go to some places, you might hear gunshots all the time. You go to the deep south, you might hear people just shooting deer or whatever, you know what I mean? Um, but there are many places in the US, and these aren't even like rich neighborhoods, like even middle and low income places in the US, where gun violence is just straight up not a problem. So to have this thing that makes it like you go to the US and you're basically guaranteed to be a victim of gun violence is just not true. The vast majority of the time, you're going to be fine. Like, what percentage of people, like, how many people are a victim? How many Americans are victim to gun violence? Let's just do something like that, right? It can be die, it can be shot, whatever the case may be, right? 39,000 men, women, and children. So 39,000 men killed by guns every year, and that's out of what? 331 million? So let's take a look. Let's do some math, right? Let's pull up a calculator. 33,000 divided by 330 million. Is that million? I think I did. This is, hold on. It's hard to do it without the commas. So that's 330. Do. That's 330,000. So another two zeros. That should be right. Yeah, 330 000. That's 300,000. 000. That's 300 million. So let's see. What is that? 0.0001%. 0.0001%. Should that number be lower? Fair. I think that's fair, especially considering that this is per year. So like you add that up over the course of years, that number might get bigger. But what we're basically seeing here is 0.0001% chance of you being a victim of gun violence. Well, to be fair, this is fatal victims. I tried to look up just any kind of victim, um, uh, where it's not just killed but also shot. But that basically means 0.0001% chance you're gonna die from a gun violence in the United States. Is that high? Yeah, maybe, but also at the same time, let's also be 100% real, right? 40,000 Americans are killed by guns. How many people are killed by natural disease? How many Americans die in total? How many Americans die every year? Not just from guns, but from period. So, whoa, that's a lot more than I thought. 3,383,729, right? So 3 million die. What is 30,000 compared to 3 million, right? Let's see, let's pull out the calculator again. That should be 3.3 million, right? Wait. Nope, that's 330,000. There we go. 0.01? Yeah, you can say that's high. That's fair. 1,000 deaths per 100,000. That's 0.1, right? Yeah, 0.01. 0.01. Yeah. So 3 million people die every year. 0.01% are from guns. A lot of people die every year. A lot of people die every year. 0.01% are from guns. Just saying. Do you want to say that there is a gun problem? Go for it. But also, this implication that you are guaranteed to be a victim of gun violence. Like, compare these numbers to like Brazil, to many other countries. It's probably not that bad. Definitely compared to Brazil. But let's take a look, right? Gun violence statistics worldwide. All right, let's take a look. How bad is the U.S. in comparison to other countries? See, most of the deaths are suicide. If you look at the United States, Brazil, that's a whole different story, right? You look at the United States, well, I guess that's pretty high. But we also have a lot of people. This is for firearms mortality rate. Is this rate or deaths? No, this is just total deaths. Well, this isn't even a rate then. That's misleading then. Well, let's look at Taiwan. What is this? What is this? Gun homicides per million firearms? Taiwan, Netherlands? This doesn't seem right. Where are these numbers coming from? I doubt that. I don't take that for a second. Gun violence by country. Yeah, let's take a look at this. Number of guns, that doesn't mean anything. where lethal violence is fueled by firearms. Yeah, I mean, the United States is decently high up on the list, but this doesn't really prove the point I'm trying to get at. Countries and territories with the highest number of civilians. Yeah, again, this doesn't mean anything. Yeah, okay, here we go. Yeah. So this is top 25 ranked homicide rate. So this is rate, right? So you look at this. Honduras, El Salvador, Jamaica, Venezuela, Guatemala, Trinidad and Tobago, Colombia, Brazil, Belize, South Africa, some other country, Dominican Republic, Panama, Ecuador, Guyana, Mexico, Philippines, Paraguay, Nicaragua, Zimbabwe, Costa Rica, Argentina, and then finally you get to the United States. And considering that the United States is the third most populated country in the world, third most populated country in the world, and we're not even in the top 10 for homicide rate. Listen, people are going to think that I'm such a fucking hardcore gun fan and that I don't want any gun restrictions, when that's not true. I'm just trying to make it clear that gun violence is nowhere near as prevalent as a problem as the media and as people online will tell you it is. Is it a problem that should be addressed? Sure. I mean, you compare homicides per 100,000 in G8 countries. Like, you look at this, it's not great compared to Germany and France and the United Kingdom and Canada. You know, it's not great. But also the overall crime rate, even outside of guns, is still pretty high in the United States. Even outside of gun violence, the United States is still pretty high in crime rate. Well, not like super high, but more high. What is this? Intentional homicides per 100,000 people. Yeah. Brazil, yeah. Oh yeah. No, this is yeah, that's definitely something. Homicide rate in 2017. Yeah, I mean the US is pretty high. Again, 100%. Is the US worse than in some countries? Oh, 100%. But it's definitely better than other countries. For sure. All right, anyways, let's move on.
Your prison system sucks.
Prison system sucks. I don't even disagree with this necessarily. It's more that, how do I even word this in a way that makes sense? Prison system sucks. I think that, like, are you talking, because I don't know if she's talking about, like, the actual prison itself or the criminal justice system. Does the criminal justice system sucks? I will say I don't know enough about it to give a very specific opinion. I've never been to jail. I've never been accused of a crime. I've never had to appeal anything. I've never had to go through any legal courts, thankfully. I'm very fortunate to be in that situation where that has not happened to me. But that also means that I'm also not very knowledgeable in that regard. Does it suck? I would say from what I've known with other people, it's it does the job to a point that it's satisfactory in comparison to some other countries. So like I would say corruption isn't as big of a problem in the United States as in comparison to Mexico, for example. If you know, see a murder or witness a murder or a victim of a crime, you can very reliably go to the police and they will, at the very least, investigate. Will they fix the issue? I don't know. Cases may vary, but I don't think that the police would be like, I don't think the police would ever be like, no, go away. You can always go to someone. You can always go to someone. I've never heard of somebody being straight up told, no, we will not help you. Like I've never heard of a victim of violence, of any kind of violence, or a victim of any kind of crime, period, going to the police and being told, no, we will not help you, unless if they are also a criminal, in which case, obviously, that's kind of a different story. But like, if you get robbed, it's not like the police are going to be like, no, we will not help you. They might say, we can't help you, We don't have enough information or resources, but they're not going to be like, no. And you're going to get punished for going to the police. You're not going to get punished for going to the police, generally speaking. If you know of any cases, feel free to let me know. But I've never heard of that. And I will definitely be a little bit on top of it where I'm like, investigating into actual cases. Because some people like to spin stories to make it seem less accurate. And I see that all the time where people are like, this happened, but they leave out major details that make it make more sense, especially when it comes to um, police shootings, where they're like, it was an unarmed black man, and they forget to mention how that black man was previously armed and also shooting at cops. Does that make it justified? Not necessarily, but I feel like that's pretty important to mention, and if you don't mention that, then you're clearly showing your bias. Just saying. Um, by the way, I'm not white. If you think that I'm just red pilling white conservatives, I'm not. First off, I'm not white, and second off, um, it's important that you look at your sources carefully uh, and think critically about the things that you're being told. And I sometimes try to do the same thing, right? I look at as much information as I'm willing to look at, and I generally don't like to do blanket statements. Nothing here I have said right now is a blanket statement. This is based off of the knowledge I have. If you have um, counter knowledge, I would be fine for you to share it. Um, but yeah, moving on.
Metal detectors at school? Like, not that you have that, but that you need that. Just
Metal detectors at school. Yeah, I mean that doesn't seem like the biggest deal in the world. I feel like that should be more applicable, and also just I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's I don't think metal detectors are so expensive that it would be a big problem to implement them in the school, especially the magnets that they have. So I work at a stadium, right? And we have like these magnets where you can it'll only detect it won't even detect metal, it'll just detect weapons and whatnot. So like you can bring in like you can have your phone, your keys, stuff that's made out of metal on you, but it won't go off unless if it detects like a weapon, like a knife or a gun or something like that. And I think stuff like that in every school, at least at one entrance, would go a long way. And I don't think that would be too much to ask for. Um, and then you can consolidate the entrances where at certain times you can only come in from one entrance and then you can only leave from another entrance, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
everything in general. That's. And you call yourself Americans.
Yeah, I mean, America, generally speaking, has a lot of good things and a lot of bad things about it. One of the good things is freedom of speech, and I mentioned this in the other video. I don't think I mentioned it in this one, but are really proud of our freedom of speech. You can speak out against the government. You can speak out against everyone, um, and you don't have to be too worried about um, retaliation. Like it's not like if you speak out against the government that they're gonna, take away your house or arrest you or anything like that. This isn't Russia. It's not illegal to speak out against the government. You have also a lot more freedoms of expression, as in a lot less games are banned. Like for example, this is the perfect example I like to go to, right? Video games are a lot less restricted in the United States. Only two games Only one game has ever been fully 100% banned. A couple of other games have been technically banned, but if you know what the game is, it's the Guy game. I'm not going to go big into it, but if you know, you know. Um, uh, but that game was the only game that has been fully 100% banned by the US government, and it is because it not only breaks um, the laws of video game restriction. It also breaks actual real life laws. Again, if you know, you know. Two other games that were technically banned but not really are X-Men, Destiny, and Two Human, um, which were, for all intents and purposes, banned, even though they weren't really banned. Um, Here, I'll show you if you don't know what that is. It was this is a 2008 game. Um, and the reason why it was quote unquote banned is because of a lawsuit between Silicon Knights and Epic Games because of the use of the Unreal Engine. And yeah, basically, these games got they had to get pulled off of store shelves and whatnot because of a legal messy situation. The other game that got banned was X-Men Destiny. Got banned for basically the same reason. The game and another game, Two Human, were recalled and had their unsold copies destroyed due to legal issues between Silicon Knights and Epic Games. Yeah. So it's basically as close to getting banned as you can get without it technically being the definition of banned. And also another big thing, another nice thing, is that gas prices in the United States are pretty low. Let's take a look at the gas prices worldwide. Gasoline prices around the world. We'll look at that. Because I think the U.S. relatively cheap. The U.S. is one of the cheapest countries to get gas in. As you can see, yellow, 3.85, right? You compare that to most of the world, especially Europe. In Europe, gas is super expensive, 8.25, 9. In Russia, it's obviously pretty cheap, but that is a big bonus. Obviously, that's kind of necessary that gas is so cheap in the U.S. because one big downside of the U.S. is that there's a terrible public transport infrastructure. So you basically need a car in order to function as a human in this country because public transport is nowhere near competent enough to supply everyday citizens with their needs. But still, though, low gas prices is a good thing because it means that the price of everything is relatively stable, and lower prices means you're able to afford more stuff. So instead of having to choose whether or not you're going to eat or whether or not you're going to pay for gas to drive to work, you don't have to make that choice in the US as often because the prices aren't that crazy. However, in Germany, that is definitely a choice that you have to make because it is a serious expense. Filling up your tank of gas is a actual problem that you might not be able to do. You might literally not be able to fill up your gas because of how expensive it is. Or you might have to not eat for a week if you actually were to fill up your entire tank of gas. If you are not monetarily well off. And that is just not as much of a problem in the United States. So yeah, there you go. That's my rant about the US education system and US as the United States as a whole. This was an hour long rant. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I highly doubt anybody will watch throughout this whole thing. But well, maybe me in the future. You know what? Hey, what's up, me in the future who's probably gonna watch this unedited? I'm probably gonna upload this whole thing unedited to my unedited channel. But unedited archive uh content archive channel. But yeah, take care. Hope you enjoy your day and peace out.